Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. We can officially title this our deep dive series. We've been doing this for years, picking a specific movie, deep diving into the good, the bad, the ugly, the pretty good, the mediocre. Most of Nick's picks, when he picks a movie, we're down the ditches in the gutter with some of the worst movies of all time. Then Vic comes and picks a movie, brings it, elevates it back up to pretty good standards, and then Nick brings right back in the gutter. And today, thankfully, it's a Vic pick. So, well, are you disagreeing with this?
You even took down one of your damn videos, sir. One of your picks, and that was Troll 2. I don't want to
Why do you look like the girl from Blair Witch Project? you just need the snot flying out of your nose right now. You scared me there with that. The lighting made it really seem like the Blair Witch close-up. So
good.
Listen, Troll 2, an American cinematic masterpiece. Shawshank Redemption, Godfather Part 2, Troll 2, right there on the Mount Rushmore of American iconic historic cinema. That's all I'm saying. So,
at this point, you might as well throw an American Haunting in there as well.
Now, wait a minute. Didn't you watch a movie last week? You told me that is now above Troll 2 or below Troll 2?
My most hated? Yeah, I did.
Can you tell us that so the audience knows to stay away from that movie forever?
So the movie is on Tubi, and it's and for any Tony Todd fans, I'm sorry, don't watch it though. It's called The Cutters Club on Tubi. Don't do that to yourselves, okay? It's an unfinished piece of trash.
If you plan on watching the movie, cut that idea right out of your life, out of your mind. Okay, fair enough. Tubi has a lot of good stuff, has a lot of bad stuff. I mean, that's just the nature of Tubi. So can't live with it, can't live without it. So Tubi.
I mean, here's the one. If I could say one more thing about it, one way it's probably a bad movie is because it's made by one of the more Godfather-y bad B movies that people do tend to go to, and that is Full Moon Pictures.
Ooh. I've heard bad things about them.
I mean, they have a lot of bad movies, and they're intentionally supposed to be bad movies. But there are movies that are just so bad that you just wonder what even they were thinking. And Cutters Club is one of those.
Gotcha. Well, okay, so today we are talking about Sometimes They Come Back. Believe it or not, a TV movie aired on CBS back in 1991 based on a Stephen King short story, also I believe called Sometimes They Come Back. Not to point any specific websites, but a quick Google search, you can find the short story online if you're curious. Look through a couple of different websites. You'll find the short story as me and Nick Arcana did. If you're curious to get some more details, we'll talk about some of the difference between the short story and the movie here as well. But if you're curious, it's actually a fairly short, quick read that you can take in. It's online. So,
are you sure about that? Because the site you sent me, plus the YouTube video I found of somebody reading it, are both about an hour long.
Oh, okay. Well, no, the short story itself that you're saying?
Yeah, the people reading that short story, it's about an hour long.
Oh, no, but you can actually read the story though, as I'm saying though. So you don't necessarily have to go by.
Then it would be 2 hours. I don't read.
Oh, well, okay. Well, comparatively, that is a quick read though. Even like 1 hour is not like, I'm not saying it's like a 5-minute read. It's not a comic book, but compared to like say a book, that's actually pretty reasonable. 1 hour. That's not a huge investment. If you can read the short story in a shorter amount of time than the movie, I'd say that's a success. Usually the movie is like a distilled, smaller version of the book. So
yeah, well, they had to add a few things to make this book into a movie.
Oh yeah. The short story itself, I mean, it's not a movie script. They had to add some things here. Originally it was going to be in a movie called Cat's Eye. It was actually going to be a short anthology thing in the movie Cat's Eye from 1985. But then our boy producer Dino De Laurentiis, who was going to show up a lot in future things, of course, famously producer on a lot of movies from the 80s, Conan the Barbarian, did Army of Darkness in the 90s, Maximum Overdrive, big time producer from the 80s and 90s, especially for like lower rent horror movies, it seems. He saw something in this short story to be like, hey, let's not make this, a 20-minute anthology short film. Let's go ahead and make this into its own separate film. Thus, we have the bigger script, the hour and 38-minute movie that we have here. Would it work better as a short film?
It's debatable, I would say.
Yeah, there's enough meat on the bones to get a movie out of this. I feel like there's enough story here. So
well, that, and if they actually followed the short story and made it into a short, you're probably going to be wondering a few things, like the villain's motivations going after Jim makes a little more sense in the movie than it does in the short story, in my opinion. Admittedly, I still have like 5 paragraphs left to read of the short story.
Yeah.
I think I'm literally just about to hit the climax of it before we started this. But I at least got pretty much all the main details down for it.
Yeah, and I think that, it's a rare opportunity where usually the book will expand upon the movie, but this is the rare opportunity where the movie can actually give you more details than the book does because it's a short story. So, well, let's talk about the movie. So I want to let me look up I had the main actor's name. Let me look it up real quick because I think he does actually a pretty good job performance-wise. So I want to shout out. This is one of those kind of movies that if you don't like the main actor, I think that it's hard to probably stick with it if the main actor's not doing a decent job. Tim Matheson, I want to say, who I have seen in some other movies. Let me shout out some other things that he's in. Tim Matheson is also, well, he actually...
This is the only movie he's ever been in, folks.
There's no way. Oh yeah, no, a lot of stuff in the 90s. So, now in terms of big stuff, maybe not big stuff, but Drop Dead Fred. Wow, I thought I'd seen him in a lot of movies, but I guess not. Oh, well, he's Al Donnelly. He's Chris Farley's brother in Black Sheep. That's a great, funny movie. He's the father and she's all that. So. Well, either way, Tim Matheson did a fantastic job in this movie. I also want to shout out, this movie is directed by Tom McLoughlin, who directed Jason Lives, which probably is my favorite Friday the 13th film. So shout out to Tim McLoughlin for directing this movie. And then also big shout out to one of my favorite horror actresses of the 80s, Brooke Adams, who also is in The Dead Zone. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, actually from the 70s. She was a big enough actress that when they approached her with the role, she was like, I need to do more in this film. Like, I think originally the wife role was written actually smaller, even. Like, it was a very, very background character. And she was like, I need more scenes, otherwise I'm not doing this movie. So they actually wrote her role up a little bit.
So I can actually tell you what her scenes were like, okay? Honey, why are you screaming in the middle of the night? Oh, just take a taxi, honey. Don't go to just take a taxi to your mother's, but it's 4 blocks away. And then the next scene is she died in the short story. So that was her interaction throughout the whole short story.
I don't know if she's like an actress, so she's probably like, okay, what can I do with this character? What can I like do to make this a bigger role? The message I'm getting from her performance throughout the movie is slowly frustration building with each scene to where you're like, man, she's ready to leave this dude. Like, this dude is giving her answers that are not the answers she's looking for to all her questions. I just feel a big, strong frustration growing with her with each scene she's in, of like, every scene this dude is telling me some new stuff that's making me more and more annoyed. My mother told me, my dad told me I shouldn't have married this guy. And now I'm starting to see the cracks there. Their marriage is like a low key, like it feels like it's kind of on the rocks here. Apparently he's been going through a lot in the past.
So
and she's been dealing with it. So
apparently, so in both this and the short story, they both bring up that he does have a violent tendency. He actually has some temper issues. Whereas in the short story, it's alluded that he beat someone with a guitar while trying to protect one of his students. In this one, it's just a bunch of rumors. I think the guitar was actually one of the rumors, which is a fun nod to the short story. I think they said ultimately he just took a chair and like chucked it out a window out of frustration.
Yeah, it's interesting. I wonder. So I guess we should cite that. We should say that that's directly related to the whole childhood incident. Somehow made him an angry adult, but I don't know if that lines up per se. But
So there, I don't know. I probably should have looked this up now that I read both of the watched this and read the short story. But there is some form of combination of pretty much someone witnessing a violent incident, and then eventually, because they didn't get the help needed to process everything correctly, becomes violent themselves.
okay. Okay, so that makes sense. So, and it makes this story work better that does have the violent background. It means that he's walking on eggshells with his job and stuff. He really can't be seen as being out of line here at this new teaching job, which does help with some of these scenes. The move back home, move back to your hometown where the trauma is later in life, certainly a choice. Usually,
He should have just taken up painting again. Let's just say that.
yeah, usually the better strategy would be to move somewhere and then start a new life and forget about the past. But he's chosen to bring his family back into the trauma directly. I guess going with the Alice from Friday 13th Part 2 strategy of if I come back and confront my fears, all will be well. Unfortunately, she got an ice pick in the head, and this guy didn't really get a good deal either here. But it's a choice. I mean, but even the wife at a certain point in the movie is kind of just like, but she makes a puzzling comment. She's like, you know, she's citing like things from the past. She's like, I thought we came here for a fresh start. And I'm just like, how are you getting a fresh start in his hometown? This is going to be the thing that brings back all the trauma. I mean, come on.
And it's not like she doesn't know what happened because he references Wayne to her, so he has told her about his past. And I think she even asked him when they first got there, is like, are you sure you're okay with this?
Yeah. And watching the movie, we were talking about the idea of like, do we think when he comes back into town, now all the visions start, all his dreams start? I'm like, it must have started beforehand because she is talking about past things. Maybe she's talking about the violent stuff. But I'm guessing he was thinking like this stuff is in my mind. If I go there, I can get it out of my mind, or I can fix it somehow. So I think
So,
I don't know if the visions were there just when he gets back into town, but
no, the visions get a little bit more clearer, I guess I should say, when he gets back to town. But if you listen to the narration at the very beginning, he says that he was hoping to be able to clear some of those those nightmares up when he
yeah.
gets there. So he's been having them.
So it's an idea of facing your fears. Now, also we can say that we can assume that what we see in the movie is that when he's in town, let's say the evil forces do start to like actually probably make his visions more intense. They start to have an influence on his dreams and his visions. At a certain point, they're really directly influencing his visions, let's say. But maybe that starts as soon as he's back, because as soon as he's back, we get this scene. We'll talk about the Billy thing, I guess, first. It happens pretty quickly. Billy is a student who seems to get along with our teacher Jim, and Billy gives him a goodbye speech, basically saying, "I hope I remember for something," which is always like, man, this dude's probably gonna be dead
Which,
man next scene. So
actually, talking about Billy, his this conversation between Jim and Billy is actually a fun little foreshadow about the ending. Because just keep in mind, he's asking, does history have to repeat itself? And Jim tells him, no. If you have the courage to be able to change it, then it won't repeat itself.
Interesting.
Which is actually kind of a foreshadow to our ending scene.
Yeah, that gets into the whole meat of the entire movie. Basically, is like, can you change history, or does history have to repeat itself? I think that Billy's scene is very interesting. I want to break down first thing that's something that blows my mind, which when we were watching it, I brought it up. Listen, Billy, I don't care how comfortable you are on your stupid bike. You don't ride the bike in the middle of the road with headphones on, blasting music. How is that comfortable? You can't hear anything behind you. You're in the middle of the road. So when I'm not saying that it's not normal that a ghostly car is sneaking up on you, but when any car is right behind you, you want to at least have some awareness. You're staring ahead with headphones on in the middle of the road. I think Billy ghost car aside, I think it was headed for a downfall anyways with his bike methods, his bike driving stupidity.
Okay, hold on, because I've actually done this before. Um, I've ridden down the road on my bike, headphones in.
What?
Uh,
Don't
what's
defend this
going on?
nonsense. Don't defend this nonsense. That means that
I'm
you were
going
full of
to, because
you were
what's going
nonsense.
on is
You were doing nonsense too. All right, that's what this means. All right.
what's going on is his parents probably did not like rock music, right? Probably called it
Yeah.
trash, devil music, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a small town. Most likely, everybody there are Christians.
Yeah.
But so rock music, depending on the rock, of course, classified as devil music. I bet you anything he was listening to Iron Maiden while riding down, just jamming out, because that's the only place he's able to listen is on that bike before he gets home. Because if he plays it at home, his dad going to take a belt to him.
Okay. If you're doing the music, I don't mind that as much. If you're taking a road where it's like sort
Maybe
of
a bike trail.
your own separate bike path where there's nothing unpredictable that can be happening behind you. On a main road, in the middle of the road, at a certain point, you have to be like, this combination doesn't add up to logic. Yeah, take a bike path, go through the woods and listen to your music. On the main road, like, what if?
I mean, remember, the whole town seems to be full of bullies.
You know, a common bike accident sometimes, or like something where a car tries to go around the bike person, and the bike person at the same time is like going off the side himself, and they end up hitting each other. It's like these communication fails are more likely to happen if the bike dude is not aware that the car is behind him. It's just,
well, he was very aware that that car was behind him when it got 5 centimeters from hitting his tire.
oh yeah, well yeah, at that point. And now it's explained to me also how for a good 2 minutes here, Billy's driving his bike and the ghost car is going top speed and doesn't just immediately catch on to him and hit him. The bike is outrunning the car for a good 30 seconds at least.
I know why. Are you ready? Because if you remember, when we get the point of view of the family that's on the side of the road, they don't see that car.
Yeah.
All they see is, the kid going down on his bike, and then you see Jim coming in his Winnebago. So what it is the car didn't want to hit the bike because it didn't want any kind of damage, because they wanted to try to frame Jim as Jim chasing him and the kid flying off the bridge as an accident.
The car at some point does hit the bike, right? Like there's some kind of impact. Because I'm trying to figure out basically, is the car actually a physical thing, or is it actually, can Billy sees the car behind him, but is it actually a physical thing? Like, could the car run him over, or is it just at this point just something where you can see it to scare Billy, but it can't actually physically touch Billy? Because that makes a big difference then. Then I'm like, my thing doesn't matter then. The car can be coming top speed. It's not a physical thing. It's actually just something you can see, but it's like but if it's a physical object going top speed behind Billy on his bike, I don't care what's going on. At a certain point, the bike should be hit by the car, and the car flies off into the wilderness. But okay, either way, what I'm saying is
it's also possible they just wanted to scare him at that point. Remember, these are a bunch of cowardly bullies who's in a sense their fun time is pain, is hurting people, and scaring them mainly. Because originally in that flashback we get of them accidentally killing Wayne, they didn't mean to kill Wayne. They were just trying to scare him.
Mm-hmm.
So these bullies are nothing but cowards, and that's their whole game. They want to scare Billy. Like, eventually they were going to kill him, because now they have a goal to kill people. But they still get enjoyment out of the fear.
Yeah, but they're trying to kill Billy here for the simple reason of, like, they're starting the process, the movie logic of someone has to die for them to enter into the classroom, or whatever this logic is. But
yeah, I want to talk about this logic for a second. Because so they bring up that, in order, now understand the whole classroom aspect of it, because the classroom's full. How they know that, I'm not sure. They're ghosts. Ghosts know random shit. What I want to know, though, is they bring up at least 2 or 3 times in this movie that a life has to go. There's pretty much a life for a life kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they had to do with Wayne. But yet, we see throughout the movie that these three, and if you pay attention to inside the car, all three are already in the car.
Mm-hmm.
That these three are already in real life.
Mm-hmm.
They're already physical threats.
So I think that it's got to be something. It's got to be something in the mold of either they are physical threats, but they're confined to their vehicle, or something where they can't begin to interact with Jim specifically on a one-on-one basis until they're like in his classroom. There's got to be something because the movie really does hit home the idea of like someone has to die for the other person to come.
Now you bring up the car bit. Let's jump to Katie's death for a second. Because in Katie's death, you see all three of them out of the damn car.
So maybe out of the car. So maybe going back to my thing about them interacting with Jim. It's got to be something. It's something to do with him that they can't, or maybe they can't. There's some weird thing where they can't do anything to him specifically until they're all in his classroom as something. There's something there because they, like I said, they literally in the movie itself, they say the whole thing about someone has to die for someone to come. Like they say that in the movie. So they're using that a lot.
So yeah, in the movie, it's someone has to die for one of them to show up. However, in the short story, Chip doesn't die.
Mm-hmm.
Chip just leaves town.
Yeah.
Allegedly. Again, but to be fair, I did read most of it, and unlike Billy in the short story and Katie in the short story, we don't know 100% exactly what happened to Chip. The only thing we get is the father saying, "Oh, he probably ran off to San Francisco to be a hippie." But
don't you think it's kind of so it's not in the short story, but I think that's an improvement in the movie. That adds a nice story wrinkle to be like, oh, okay, someone has to die for the other person to take his place. You don't always see that in movies a lot. I feel like that's actually a good story thing that they put in the movie to add like a gimmick to it. So
we'll bring up that if Chip did not die in the short story and just left, then that means that they just needed a free seat in his class. And again, it could be the fact that, again, these are bullies. These are teenage bullies. And their whole thing is they want to put fear in them.
Mm-hmm.
And with the whole thing of history repeating itself, seems that they cannot do anything to Jim yet, but they can still taunt him for the whole movie, which is what they're pretty much doing.
Yeah.
It also makes me wonder, though, does that mean if the whole history repeating itself thing, does that mean that before everything that happened between Jim and Wayne in the train tunnel, does that mean that these people were actually killing others in the whole aspect, even though it seemed like everything with Wayne was an accident? Because I feel like if history is repeating itself, they shouldn't be able to actually damage anybody else.
I would never even thought about that. Interesting. The only reason I say no is because when they kill Wayne that first time, they genuinely seem sort of shocked and taken aback by it. Like they definitely didn't mean to. Like the idea of killing someone did seem like a foreign thing to them when they killed Wayne. So based on the reaction, I would say probably not. I think that it's kind of like killing the kids is kind of like, I know they have to do it to get into the classroom, but I've said it many times. Ben Willis, other things we talked about. I hate when revenge stories have kills that have nothing to do with the revenge story, because the whole purpose of the revenge story is you want to be like, hey, this killer at least has some reason, plausible, just maybe justifiable reason to be getting revenge on our hero. When you kill innocent bystanders, you're taking the whole thing away from the villain having anything justifiable. You're like, yeah, but he's killing innocent people, so his whole revenge point, he has no point. There's no purpose to what he's saying. I hate it. I didn't like that with Ben Willis. I was like, if they're killing our heroes who actually did something to them, the whole thing feels like, well, not that they should have had it coming, but at least the villain has a point here. I hate when they do something outside of that, and they always do that in these horror movies. But
so I'll agree with that one. But another difference between the movie and the short story is in the short story, Wayne's death was not an accident. Pretty much they call him, even though I don't, in the movie, he doesn't have a birthmark, but Richard Lawson and Vinny were both stabbing Wayne as our main character was leaving. In fact, their deaths are also completely different in the short story than it is the movie. In the movie, it is revealed that our main character did have something to do with their death, which is why they want revenge on him.
Took the car keys.
However, in the short story, they died in a car accident because a cop was chasing them.
Ah, interesting.
So overall, they don't have. They're not coming back for revenge against Jim. They're coming back just to kill him. That they're literally evil bastards in the short story.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about that in the movie. You know, it seems like in the movie they accidentally killed Wayne. The way they kill the teens is so sinister that I do feel like, and it's their personalities. It seems like maybe turned up a little bit, the volume's turned up a little bit, but they probably were capable of becoming serial killers just based on what they do to the. Now, we kind of skipped over, but let's talk about. I felt bad for Kate because she seemed to be just a good student, doing all the right things, and just these students are doomed just because they happen to be his students.
Actually,
this guy coming back to this small town and being their teacher got them killed.
So I will argue that Billy was just in the wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
Katie, she was a target because she called Richard an idiot.
Oh, come on.
Oh, did you not see? Oh, you should have seen his face. When she said, "Don't listen to this idiot, continue teaching." Oh, he gave her such a death glare. It's like, okay, we 100% know you're next. No matter what our teacher thinks of you.
He was probably scouting out, like, who's the next person we're targeting, and then she made herself an easy target. Still, that's still just wrong place, wrong time. You don't think the classroom dude you call an idiot has a group of friends that are going to terrorize you that very night and kill you, right?
Oh, no, she doesn't think that, but us as the audience can see it because his whole thing is, oh, you don't disrespect me, you don't hit me, you're going to have to die now. Yeah. And Katie technically gave him a slap to the face by calling him an idiot.
Yeah, but her being the standout student in the class, even if she doesn't do that, let's be honest, there's a good chance they were going to pick her as the next person anyways, just because she's like the best student in the class. She gets along with the teacher. There's a good chance that probably she was the target anyways. Either way,
she was sitting right next to him. She probably was the target no matter what.
Yeah, the bottom line is the teacher is the Tommy Jarvis Award in this case because they happen to be his student, and that's why they're being targeted. There's 500 other classes going on in that school with nobody getting killed, but they're in his stupid classroom, and they died because they're his teacher. So, he's their teacher.
I love how you brought that because it segues into my next question. Jim is a horrible teacher.
Oh, I didn't.
One of the things to be a teacher is you need to be a safe person for your students to be able to potentially come to in case something's going on at home or any of that. Be helpful for your students, but also to keep your students safe when they are in your classroom.
Yep.
Now, sure, all this stuff happened outside of his classroom. He can't control that, but he can control who's in his classroom to an extent. The fact that Vinny pulls out a knife on him in the classroom and the guy is still allowed in his classroom the very next day. He wasn't like rushed out to the principal's office and says, "Get this kid out of here. You just threatened me with a knife."
Yeah, and all the students were witnesses. He had plenty of witnesses.
Yeah, and then you also got Chip. Now, Chip would have been a little bit harder because it was a one-on-one conversation. Of course, Chip's friends would have just said, he didn't say that to him. They just had a general conversation. But still, Chip still came at him in his car. Chip still punched the teacher's car and said, "I'm coming after you." And Billy was a witness afterwards.
Yeah.
So again, he's not doing much to keep his students potentially safe.
But is the thing where because of his past, though, he doesn't want to ruffle any feathers at all? He doesn't want to bring up any kind of trouble with his students?
Guess what? It's your duty to keep your students safe. If you feel like a student is dangerous, if he's threatening a teacher, then what is he doing to people his own age?
Yeah.
And in fact, even the short story, yes, it brings up that fact. He doesn't want to ruffle up feathers because in the short story, it goes through what feels like years. of buildup. I mean, he mentions kids are getting into fights. All this is happening. One kid brought in a knife. It's like, you're still supposed to keep your students safe. And one of the ways to do that is if you feel like one of them is a threat, you get them out of that class.
What do you think about the idea that I agree with all your points here. What do you think about the idea that with Billy and Kate, you have two people that are in the same class killed back to back, right? Obviously, Jim being the teacher, that's suspect. But the cops also got to be like, okay, they're in the same class. Let's do a quick investigation, a quick look into all the students in that classroom, because if they're both in the same class, probably somebody who killed them knew who they are. This classroom, let's investigate this classroom. Now, you're investigating the classroom. You're like, okay, what's going on here? This person. Okay, this person just transferred in. And look at that picture. What's his name? Let's down. You probably find something off about the new, or you maybe even suspect that the new transfer student is generally suspicious. But wouldn't they be investigating the kids in that classroom also, the teens? Because it's like they're in the same class. Wouldn't you be like, okay, they were in this classroom together. Maybe the teacher, but maybe one of the kids next to them killed them. I feel like all the kids in the classroom would at least get a little bit of a background check on them. And maybe that would reveal something about the transfer student if they do this background check.
So this is actually where another thing I like about the short story more than the movie. The movie adds that police bit, and it's not in the short story. And the police bit is honestly the dumbest fucking thing in here. In the short story, these students are dying way before our character. Like, our teacher doesn't even know what's going on. Mm-hmm. And the students are dying. And all of a sudden, a week later, another one comes into class. It's not almost instantly. The teachers never. So that's what I like about the short story. It does it a little better, the whole life for a life. Because our villains are not introduced until after one of the characters either disappears or dies. So you got that aspect. Now, as for the police aspect, this is why I don't like the police in this movie. He automatically assumes that Jim is our villain because he's an adult. Kids are disappearing in his class. So he found one of them who is classified as a suicide, and he even asked, how did you know she was there? Mm-hmm. And then the other part is when Chip gets taken in the damn movie, he even tells the cop, hey, one of my students was just taken. And he goes, hey, you want to come down to the station and answer a few questions?
Yeah.
No, I want you to go out and do your damn job. One of my students was just taken.
Well, the problem is if you're a cop, let's say you're a cop, right? And you're disqualifying anything. You're like, I don't believe in supernatural anything, right? I don't like the TV show. I don't believe in anything supernatural. So how low-key just dissing the show for no reason. But let's say you're the cop and you say that, right? So someone being like, hey, okay, you're not a suspect, but you told me where the body is. You told me go look for Kate in the cornfield, and then you left the barn. What is the cop supposed to think? He's supposed to be like, well, how do you know this? Are you freaking Devon Sawa from Final Destination? You're getting these visions? It sounds like those who you smelt it dealt it. It sounds like this dude, Jim, probably is the killer in that case. If you're not taking account anything supernatural.
I would have agreed with that until fucking Chip got taken. And he straight up tells the cop, hey, one of my students who was just here talking to me just got taken. Go get him. And the cop's like, oh, we'll do that later. Come to the station with me. Like, go find my student.
The cop's thinking Chip is safe as long as I'm here watching the killer. Chip is safe. But in hindsight, when Chip goes missing, then they can be like, okay, before we got to the teacher, he had already done something with Chip early in the day. I'm guessing that's what they're thinking, probably. So,
you're giving too much credit to these cops.
I think we should take a moment to laugh at how funny Chip's death scene is. How
randomly body parts flying out the car.
They kidnapped Chip, so I'm thinking they're gonna hold him for ransom almost. Like be like, hey, Jim, if you want Chip, come and save your student. Cause this is so drawn out. They drive with him on the car, he flies off the car. It's almost like just filling in time. Now you get him, you bring him into the car, and then they taunt him for 10 minutes of scenes of them just driving. They get to a bridge, stop, and then they all turn into their monster selves. And then we just have this cutaway scene of body parts flying out the car off the bridge. And look, hilarious. It's such a random funny thing. I don't
It
know.
honestly, that scene does remind me a little bit of something like Freddy Krueger would do if he was in real life. Just to
Yeah.
mess, but somebody else would be there as an audience and he'd be messing with them by doing it.
But you know why it feels like Freddy too? Because you have the characters in the car and you hear their stupid laughing in every scene. They're giggling and hyena laughing. I give props to the actors. I don't know if they got together and practiced like, hey, let's laugh together like demonically and make it funny, but their background laughing is like a hilariously funny thing in a lot of these scenes. But them laughing while the body parts are being flying, it's just for me, it's comedy. It's like I'm just laughing. They're having the
Well,
time of their lives. So
I got a question for you. So they keep saying that they're transfers from Milford.
yep.
Where is Milford?
Milford apparently is hard to find like Nilbog, but apparently it's a cemetery in town ish, somewhere around Milford Cemetery.
Milford Cemetery, where they are weirdly buried next to each other. I always thought they would be buried with like friends or not friends, family. Like,
Well, maybe they were friends, but they were actually
were they
families.
were all three lovers? They were
No,
lovers. They didn't
no,
have girlfriends. Gotcha.
no.
They
You
had
haven't heard. You
boyfriends.
haven't heard. You haven't heard the trope called found family.
Oh no, I have that. I have plenty of that. One of
Yeah.
them's just on the screen and refuses to come over here.
Well, there you go. So,
That
so,
doesn't mean
so
I want my plot put next to you, bud.
I'm so offended by this conversation. All right,
Mainly
you.
because I plan on being burned. I plan on being cremated. My wife is going to take my ashes to the beach and thrown into the wind so I can continue traveling for the rest of my life.
You're gonna be buried in the cemetery next to me here. I didn't know you had put so much thought in this, man. Ashes thrown into the water. Jeez, how are you gonna get ashes eaten
I
by
mean,
a
it's
jellyfish?
the same thing I told my dad. My dad kept telling me, and I told him I'll just flush him down the toilet. He'll get to the ocean eventually.
The problem with oceans, though, is like, man, you're gonna be like your ashes. They're not gonna travel. They're gonna be eaten by sea creatures. So some you're letting some random fish enjoy your ashes. So
I mean, it's either that. I told my brother I'd put him in a sailboat, let the boat go down the river a little bit, and then shoot him with a flaming arrow and let it burn away that way.
hmm.
Send him to Valhalla happy.
Well, okay. Well, hopefully, yeah, let's move on.
Wait, you get?
This took
Are
a
you getting?
this took a turn for the dark. All right, so
To be fair, this whole movie, and I agree with you on this point, feels like an "Are You Afraid of the Dark" episode.
it's a long Are You Afraid of the Dark episode. It actually, ironically, it came out basically the same year as Are You Afraid of the Dark, so it has that feel. Um, I know the death thing, someone has to die to be replaced thing is so important in the movie because at the end, what's his face, the fourth member of the gang who had survived and the gang didn't like him so much anymore. He commented that he had to die basically so that, um, Jim's brother can actually come back. Wayne can come back now.
So why
So
does
that's
Wayne
so built into
apparently
the
have to come back in this way, but yet the others were already out in the real world?
The others, for some reason, were like in an actual afterlife, like hell. Young Wayne was like in, I guess, this weird middle dimension where there's no awareness at all. Like he still thinks he's a, whatever old boy. When he sees Jim as an adult, he can't accept that's his brother. He's like, "You're not my
So
brother."
they actually classify that as a residual haunting almost. Pretty much,
Yeah.
you're in the spot and you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, reliving your death in a sense.
In the movie, I'm thinking that because it seemed like the gang was scared of the idea of Wayne coming back. I'm thinking, oh, Wayne's about to come back with some heavenly badass Jason Bourne ability. He's about to come in and John Wick these mofos. And we didn't get that on when Wayne comes out and just like, leave my brother alone. I told you leave him alone. I'm just like, oh man, kid, you better come with more than that. They're supposed to be like afraid of you as like a demonic force, but they're like, just kill this kid again. I'm like, I was expecting a more of a badass Wayne, but
Which is which is kind of weird because because I was assuming with with them pretty much repeating, saying they have to do this in the exact same fashion that they died. Their only difference is they're going to keep Jim there to kill him.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is, I'm assuming Mueller was supposed to be kind of taking Wayne's part, or maybe even taking Jim's part. Maybe Mueller was still going to run and survive.
Yeah.
But
well, they say like they say you weren't supposed to
die.
Yeah, they weren't supposed to kill Mueller. So,
but
it's exactly that. They were going to replay it with Mueller there in that spot. So.
Yeah, and then Jim pretty much taking over what Wayne's part would have been, so that way Jim could then die.
Yeah.
But this whole thing still feels a little off to me. I mean, it's a fun little climax. And then you get your Vinny, who's the crazy one of the group, sticking his tongue out at them, happy that they're dying in the way they're dying again. But you're telling me they plan on this being exactly the same way as 27 years prior, and they're confused that there's a train coming?
Yeah. Well, Vinny did the thing where he's like, ah, but then he turns back, he's like, oh, the train. Yeah.
Even before they get in the car, they were even like, Vinny's like, hey, do you hear that? As if they weren't expecting the train. And then when Lawson looks over, he goes, oh, shit. It's like,
I think there's some weird thing with them also where they're like, they're mostly aware, but they have moments where they still think they're like the high school, whatever. Like maybe it's like 80-20, but that had to be that of the train or where it brought back some trauma. But the whole thing with that ending is like, just like for the villains, all that's happening is they're just going back to where they were before. It's not really from their perspective, they're not dying. They're already dead. They came from hell, so they're going back to hell. So it's kind of a weird, just like sending them back to their normal, like they're going back home basically. So I don't know. They go for more the short story. I know you haven't read the ending, but apparently the short story is more about, Jim having to summon an actual demon to come and take out the teens than the demon does. And the demon's like, I'll be back. So there's a bigger meaning to that ending of like, oh, he had to potentially bring a demon to this world in order to solve his problem, but maybe he'd doom the rest of the world.
I don't think he doomed the rest of the world per se. I think he just sold his soul. So the I'll be back is him coming to collect.
Yeah, well.
Which, to be fair, the man's wife died in the short story, okay? So
yeah.
I don't think he has, and he doesn't have a kid, so I don't think he has much to live for anymore.
Yeah, the end of the movie goes for more, I would say, of like a happy, sentimental ending with him getting to say goodbye to his brother departing, and we get the happy ending with him and his family. Only for this movie does it feel like the happy sentimental ending. I get what they're doing, but in this movie where we had like innocent teens like being completely disposed of with body parts flying out the vehicle with people laughing, it seemed too sentimental for this specific movie. But again, the main actor is a good actor, does a good job with even the emotional scenes, does a good job. So I still liked it overall, the ending. And yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think that obviously the short story is different from the movie. They almost feel like two different things.
No, but all I gotta say is for me, the ending. All I gotta say is for me, the ending is the weakest point, in my opinion. But it's Stephen King, so that's to be fair.
But it's not his. But to be fair, it's not his ending though. He didn't write the script for the movie, so they adapted his screenplay. But Stephen King does have issues with endings for sure. So
yeah, but still, either way, the ending is the weakest part for me about this movie. I definitely like our three villains. They are creepy. They play creepy and psychotic pretty well. Not a big fan of dude's son because his son decided, hey, that guy does not sound like my dad. I'm going to run out of the damn church that is known to protect me.
Tell the audience.
Get the kid just shooting a slingshot into their mouths.
We should tell the audience that for the first 45 minutes of the movie, Nick just did not want to believe or did not believe that this was the same kid from Leprechaun. He had to look it up and find like, what? And I'm like, he's playing a different role, but he's not as like badassy as he is in Leprechaun. He's more whiny here, but he's definitely the same kid.
You know what? They should have made it to where he was the same kid. Fuck! I dropped my rock.
Wow. One of the most fun scenes ever. This should be so much like a meme of just like the kid walking down the street, saying goodbye to his school friend, and the damn fiery ghost car comes out of nowhere right behind him, and then like Billy before him, there's a solid 30 seconds where this kid is outrunning the car. I don't understand.
Again, they definitely didn't want to kill this kid because they had a good opportunity when he got under another car. But
so I would say, and the movie does have a couple of good jump scares too. There's a thing with the wife where the killer the teens show up, and it's kind of a good little jump scare.
busting through the windows.
Yeah, there's some spooky scenes. I would say the movie doesn't like shy away from trying to be scary at certain points. So I would say, listen, it's a TV movie, so you can't expect anything amazing. Probably have been some great TV movies, actually, though. I should probably not say that. But I would say it's a solid, fun, sing at home on a Sunday afternoon with nothing to do, a movie to watch.
And if you don't want to pay for it, you can watch it on Pluto TV.
Pluto TV coming in the clutch always with the free viewing. There is a sequel with Michael Gross, Hilary Swank. It's a 4-point-something on IMDb. I am curious, so I feel like we should watch it just out of curiosity. It's Michael Gross, so I mean,
and apparently there's a third one that has nothing to do with the first two or even the same story as the first two. So
that one I will not watch probably, but I'm assuming the sequel probably obviously a different character, probably the same sort of format. So
most likely, it sounds like it's the same format.
Well, either way, again, shout out to all the actors, Tom McLaughlin, the director. Shout out to Stephen King.
And as always, folks, if you're being chased by ghostly figures, go to a church because if they're demonic ghostly figures, they're not going to be able to step in it if it's still holy. Remember, that holy does have an expiration date, though.
And if you are a bike rider or you have kids, do not do like Nick Arcana and young Billy. Do not ride your bike with headphones on, blasting your rock music. And if you do, you better be on a bike path that's only for you and not in the middle of the road where ghostly cars or even just bad drivers can run you off the road.
So I didn't actually get into rock. I mean, I like classic rock growing up, but at the time I was doing that, riding my bike with headphones, it was rap, not rock. This kid was rock. I mean, if it was rock, I wouldn't need the headphones.
I mean, I just think if you're doing anything that's like dangerous, and riding a bike can be dangerous. Anything like that, I feel like you should be aware of your surroundings. And if you're killing off your sound, I feel like you're not being aware of your surroundings. So either way, until next time.
This is the same guy who refuses to learn how to swim.
Nick doesn't remember. He probably did get run off the road, hit his head on rock, woke up, thought Repo the Genetic Opera was a good movie. Half his reviews now are based on that rock in his head from when he ran off the road.
Repo the Genetic Opera is an amazing movie.
He has amnesia. All right, folks. Until next time, do not lean into the camera and do Blair Witch face like Nick Arcana did multiple times in this podcast. So, you know what? We got to cut all that. Get out of here.